All right, folks, we are live again with another Pangburn live stream. Today, we're asking the question, why do you believe everything in the Bible? Most people who believe in the accuracy of the Bible tend to believe everything in the Bible, at least in my experience of talking to people. Like they'll have ways of apologizing things that seem to not make sense, or apologizing away certain contradictions that seem obvious. Alex O'Connor and Dinesh D'Souza went through this recently in their discussion on the Pangburn stage. If you guys haven't checked out that, please check it out. So the question is, why do you believe everything in the Bible? And what does it mean to believe everything in the Bible? Or we can even talk about particular things and why they make sense to you. When you do get into the room, we really appreciate it if you drop a like on this YouTube video. It really helps spread the word and get more people involved in these conversations. I am going to start by doing a bit of reading right off the bat here. Those of you will have who are here to begin with will have a little bit of an advantage. The history of the Bible authorship spans thousands of years, with contributions from various authors, cultures, and traditions. The Bible, consisting of the Old Testament, Hebrew Bible, and the New Testament, reflects the religious, historical, and literary development of the Jewish and Christian traditions. The Old Testament, Hebrew Bible. Origins and authorship. Time frame. The Old Testament was written between approximately 1200 BCE and 165 BCE. Languages, primarily written in Hebrew with some portions in Aramaic. Example, parts of Daniel and Ezra. Authorship. Traditionally, Jewish tradition attributes the first 5 books, the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, to Moses. However, modern scholarship, documentary hypothesis, suggests multiple sources contributed to the Torah. Other books, such as Psalms, are attributed to King David, though they likely include contributions from multiple authors over centuries. Prophets like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel authored prophetic texts, though some books, Isaiah, for example, are believed to have been compiled by later followers. Historical books, for example, Kings and Chronicles, were likely compiled by scribes or historians in the post-exilic, I believe it's pronounced, period, after the Babylonian exile, 6th century BCE. Compilation and canonization. Compilation. Texts were written over centuries and preserved through oral tradition before being compiled into written form. Canonization. The Hebrew Bible was finalized around the 2nd century BCE for most Jewish communities, though debates about some texts, example, Ecclesiastes, I mess that up all the time, Song of Songs, persisted. So there's still debates about those texts. The New Testament, origins and authorship, time frame, written between approximately 5 CE and 100 CE. Language, primarily written in Greek. Authorship, the Gospels, traditionally attributed to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Modern scholarship debates their authorship, suggesting they may be based on earlier oral traditions and written sources. Pauline epistles. Paul the Apostle is credited with 13 letters. Romans, Corinthians. Some, like Hebrews, are disputed in authorship. Other epistles, written by figures such as James, Peter, John, and Jude. Revelation, attributed to John of Patmos, though his identity remains uncertain. Compilation and canonization. Early circulation. Early Christian communities circulated texts, letters, gospels independently. Canon formation. By the 4th century CE, the Christian canon began to solidify. The Council of Nicaea, I believe it is, 325 CE, and subsequent councils helped formalize the canon. The Council of Carthage, 397 CE, is often cited as confirming the New Testament canon. 3. Influences and variations. Cultural influences. The Bible reflects diverse cultural, historical, and religious influences, including Mesopotamian, Egyptian, Greek, and Roman contexts. Textual variations. The Septuagint, I think it's pronounced, influenced by the early Christian Old Testament. This is a textual variation. The Dead Sea Scrolls, of course, discovered in 1947, provide insights into early Hebrew texts. Differences exist between Jewish, Catholic, Orthodox, and Protestant canons regarding the inclusion of deuterocanonical books, so Maccabees and Tobit. Historical development of the text. Oral tradition. Early biblical stories were likely passed down orally before being written. Manuscript tradition. Ancient texts were copied by hand, leading to scribal variations. Major manuscripts include the Masoretic texts, the Septuagint, and Codex Sinaiticus. Printing and translation. The Gutenberg Bible, 1455, was the first printed Bible, 1455. Significant translations like the King James Version, 1611, shaped modern perceptions of the Bible. Modern scholarship, textual criticism, analyzes manuscript variations to reconstruct the original text. Historical critical method examines the historical and cultural context of biblical texts. Source criticism identifies underlying sources and redaction processes in the text. The Bible's authorship remains a dynamic field of study, combining religious tradition, archaeology, and literary analysis to uncover its rich and complex history. So I'm just doing a little bit of the history there, just as an introduction to the topic today. And the question we're asking is, why do you believe everything in the Bible? And I'm asking everything because most people, I find, like, either have faith that the Bible is accurate and something to be believed, or they don't have that faith. That's, very few people admit to being cherry pickers of the Bible, or they'll have some form of apologetics of how they dismiss the parts that they find are not in accordance with their own moral sentiments. For those of you who are in the room already, please drop a like. Really appreciate it. Just smash that like button. I'm going to give you guys an invite to our Discord server, and you can pop in and chat with us if you want. We're going to get some open discussions started here. The live discussion here. Pin. There we go. Okay, awesome. Now there's one more thing I want to read, because it's a really important reason as to why I don't take the Bible seriously. I take the human phenomenology of the Bible seriously, because I understand that it means a lot to human beings, and I like to try to understand why and have conversations about that. But I think I was around 5 years old when I was my big question was like, okay, who actually authored these books? Because the Bible is compiled of many books. And why is what they had to say special compared to other authors who have written books? So you get into this conversation about people claiming to be, or others claiming the authors to be divinely inspired. Why would we claim that? Why do we believe that any of these authors were divinely inspired? Or if someone was to claim, I am divinely inspired, and then write something down, why would we believe that they're divinely inspired? Why wouldn't we just believe that these are texts from authors just like any other authorship? So some authors of the Bible, the biblical text, explicitly or implicitly claim to be inspired by God, while others conveyed divine inspiration through the narratives or content of their writings. Here's an overview of how the claim of divine inspiration is reflected in the Bible. And this will be quick. Claims in the Old Testament, explicit claims of divine inspiration, prophetic writings. Many prophets claim to speak directly on behalf of God, often using phrases like, thus say the Lord. Example, Isaiah 1st, 2nd, Jeremiah 2nd, 1st, Ezekiel 2nd, 4th. These phrases were meant to convey that their word were not their own, their words were not their own, but were divinely given. Now, many people who subscribe to the Bible, subscribe to Christianity, believe this, right? They believe that when, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, when these characters say, thus say the Lord, you just believe it. People believe it. Why? Why would we just believe that they are divinely inspired and this is not just simply their own words or their own moral prescriptions, but these are divine in some way? Here are some more examples. Moses in the Torah, often described as receiving commandments and laws directly from God. Exodus 21 and Deuteronomy 5, 1 through 5 are examples of this. And how many people believe that Moses actually did receive the commandments and laws directly from God and deliver that information correctly to man? Well, millions upon millions of people believe that. Why? Because he said so. And it's interesting because what if what Moses in this story delivered to the people was something so incoherent that they just couldn't stomach it? And maybe they would have said, okay, this doesn't seem like it has come from a God. But at that point, one would agree that they are just using their own moral sentiments to make that assessment about what God supposedly has told them is good or what the laws ought be. But what people forget is that they're doing that anyway when they read the commandments for the first time. They're making their own moral judgments based on their own moral sentiments anyway when that happens. So, and a lot of people want to believe that it's like, it's unlocking something within them that God placed there or something like that. But again, these are just stacking more and more claims that I think need to be demonstrated. And it's like saying you came up with this cool idea on your own, and let's say Einstein's relativity. He comes up with this, he imagines it, he puts it into theory. That alone might be hard to believe. You might want to check that and be like, oh, okay, well, let's just verify that this did come from it. Let's get him to explain a little more, make sure this hasn't been published anywhere else. Like you'll do a little due diligence before you just like believe on faith that he came up with it, right? And that's why I love science. So there's also implied claims of divine inspiration, Psalms and wisdom literature. While not always explicitly stating divine origin, many Psalms and wisdom texts, example Proverbs or Ecclesiastes, attribute their insights or teachings to divine wisdom. For example, Psalm 119, 105, or Proverbs 2:6. Claims in the New Testament. We'll go to the New Testament next. Explicit claims of divine inspiration. Jesus' words and actions. The Gospels present Jesus as speaking with divine authority, often prefacing statements with phrases like, Truly I say to you, example would be Matthew 5:18. Jesus claimed that his words were directly from God. For I do not speak on my own, but the Father who sent me commanded me to say all that I have spoken. John 12:49. Why believe it? Apostolic writings. The apostles often claim their teachings were guided by the Holy Spirit. Example, Paul. In 2 Timothy 3:16, Paul writes, all scripture is God breathed or breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness. Paul frequently stated that his authority came from God. For I received from the Lord what I also passed on to you. Maybe I should start doing that. Yeah, all the 6 Pangburn virtues and maxims, they all came from God. You wouldn't just believe me, right? You would want, like, and what if I said something like, sometime in the near future, there will be a massive explosion that shifts the world. There are many different things you could, it could be a volcano. It could be like all kinds of different things. And then someone might say, wow, that's a prophecy. You know, that's good reason to believe that this was divinely inspired. So, and we will open the conversation in a bit here, guys. We're just getting through this information. Peter affirmed the divine inspiration of Scripture, including Paul's writings. For prophecy never had its origin in the human will, but prophets, though human, spoke from God as they were carried along by the Holy Spirit. That's 2 Peter 1:21. Implied claims of divine inspiration. Gospel writers. While the gospel writers do not explicitly claim divine inspiration for their accounts, they often frame their narratives as faithful accounts of Jesus' life, guided by divine truth. Example, Luke 1:1-4. Revelation, the author traditionally identified as John of Patmos, explicitly claims to receive visions and instructions from God, the revelation from Jesus Christ, which God gave him. Revelation 1:1. A couple more quick sections here. Broader biblical themes of inspiration. The Bible as a whole emphasizes the idea that its authors were vehicles for divine truth. Holy Spirit's role. Many New Testament writings suggest that the Holy Spirit guides the authors. Here's a quote, but the advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I have said to you. John 14:26. Paul's letters frequently reference the Spirit's guidance in his ministry. Example, Romans 8:14 and Galatians 5:25. Divine authority of the text. Scripture often presents itself as a direct reflection of God's will and truth. Example, Psalm 119, 160, Hebrews 4:12. I'm giving these citations so that people can look these up themselves at any point, because this live stream will always be available. Modern interpretation. Religious believers. Many religious traditions, such as Christianity and Judaism, uphold the belief that the Bible is divinely inspired. Scholarly perspective. Scholars acknowledge the claims of divine inspiration in the text, but analyze the Bible's authorship and content within its historical and cultural context. In summary, while not every biblical author explicitly claimed divine inspiration, many texts present themselves as divinely guided or convey teachings attributed to God. This belief in divine inspiration became foundational in how the Bible has been received and interpreted throughout history. Okay, so now we're going to get to questions and comments. We got a few people in the room here. What up, Thomas? How's it going, buddy?
What's up, brother?
Well, I just gave the rundown of the authorship of the Bible and its history with all the books that compile the Bible. I gave a rundown on this issue of divine inspiration, which for me as a kid, I always thought was, you know, how could I looked around at parents and adults. I was like, how could they believe this? Like, for what good reason do you have to believe that, you know, anything at all is divinely inspired?
We don't know many of the authors, so I don't know how they could. If we don't know the authors, how in the hell do we know what they say about the texts?
Right. So yeah, I read a few, like there's some explicit and implicit claims. So again, yeah, there's the authors, and then there's what the authors are saying about the people who experience X, right? So it's that
we would need to figure out what divine inspiration means before we could go on and ascribe it to anything in the Bible.
Yeah, I mean that's what I would say. Now I just read through what they mean by divine inspiration, but I think I'll ask a little question here, because I am using ChatGPT 4.0 right now for anyone that's interested, and I think it's actually great for conversations about scripture because you can pull things directly. It's great for the Quran too, for people who don't have good English translations and things like that. So what is meant by divine inspiration biblically? Yeah, I mean it just it's a lot of what I just read, so I won't read through all of it again, but I mean, for all of our, like I gave the example, of course you all are not going to believe, and this is for everyone on YouTube and everyone in the room here, you're not going to believe if I tell you that I have a piece of information that is divinely inspired and it comes from God. Now, if I give it to you and you think it's so profound and so deep and so wild, and you're someone who's susceptible to believing extraordinary claims with a severe lack of evidence, your own moral sentiments, or your own, I guess we could just say sentiments, might convince you that there's something special about this. Just because there might be something special about an idea that someone comes up with shouldn't be proof positive that it's in any way divinely inspired. That's a whole new other step altogether. So yeah,
there's some of the Bible that says it's divinely inspired, and there's other parts that don't make any claims to that.
Yeah,
we don't know the authors of a lot of them. I think we do. So, like, we know that Revelations was written. Well, we're pretty sure that it was written by John of Patmos on an island near Greece, I think. I could be wrong about some of this stuff, but from what I remember, it wasn't even supposed to really be canon based on some of the ecumenical councils they had. They were like, I don't know if we should put this in here, and they had, an argument about the Apocrypha. And
yeah, we read through that history probably before you got into the room. We read through that history. Canaman, what do you think of the Bible's history, this issue of divine inspiration? How have you gone about dealing with this as you've come to learn about the Bible in your life?
Well, yeah, I studied, and a lot of the how do I say it? Let's just take for the fact that there's absolutely 0% chance of anybody named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the Middle East 2,000 years ago. So we understand that these books were all written by different authors, and then they were attributed to other people. So there's a falsification right there, as there's no chain of custody, for lack of a better term. And on top of that, all the fantastical claims inside the Bible. For example, the Exodus, we would expect to find temporary settlements, dropped belongings that would have been covered by desert stands very quickly and would be found as artifacts. Yeah. And we don't find any artifacts for 40 years in the desert. I'm pretty sure that
millions of people supposedly too.
Correct. And so when you take all of these things and then you add into that some of these stories are supposed to be moral mythologies to take a lesson from, and some of these are supposed to be historical fact according to some people, and then you add the sciences and the math to it, and it just tends to debunk most, if not all, of my knowledge of the Bible, which not as extensive as others, but I'd like to say above the average guy.
Right.
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah. I mean, I just, it's a really, it's like a lot, and again, it's like, it's not like the Bible is full of just like historical claims that could be verified. They're claims of resurrections. There's claims of virgin births. There's claims of the human origin story, the creation of Adam, and it's just like, only you have to become gullible in a way that you aren't throughout most of your entire life to truly believe this stuff. Now, how many people out there are just simply like in a Jordan Petersonian way, acting as though they believe in the Bible or acting as though they believe in God? How many of those people exist, or how many people who are the piecemeal cafeteria Bible believers, or they're going to take a little bit of that and a little bit of this, and then they'll never know the majority of it. I think my understanding is, as humanity, because humanity is trending into a secular direction in a big way. I do see de-radicalization of like the fundamentalist way of believing and engaging with the text, like we would have seen, even 60, 70 years ago. And I think the statistics, like if we can actually pull that up if anyone's interested in it, but I think the statistics bear that out, that we are becoming less and less and less of a godlike people, and the godlike people, especially in Christianity, that do exist. A lot of that fundamentalism and like hating homosexuals, believing homosexuals are in sin, even a lot of that is dying. So obviously there's different stories, and we're going to do the Quran in the next episode here. But we'll get into more about where the world of Islam is at, which is, they haven't, I don't think Islam has progressed in the way that Christianity has. But I think there's people out there that are afraid that Christianity will progress too far. And again, that's just based on, when you're talking about like the progression of the religion, what we're going to include in our sermons, what we're going to teach people. You're already using your own moral sentiments of good, bad, right, and wrong against the scripture that's supposed to be divinely inspired by God. You're making your own judgments of what's too progressive and what's not. So anyone who thinks that they're not going to the Bible through their own moral compass or their own moral lens, I think is deluded. I think that's what everyone's doing. If they hear something that seems archaic and out of date, they're just going to delete it, and they're just going to be like, yeah, well, Old Testament, even though Jesus came along and endorsed the Old Testament, right? So, yeah, I mean, anyone else have anything to add there?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have anything to add?
All of these Christians that are like Hohenheim and like, super liberal and piecemeal and all that kind of stuff. Isn't there a verse in the Bible, if you are lukewarm, I shall spit you out of my mouth?
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's, if you're neither hot nor cold or lukewarm, I shall spew you from my mouth. So it's like, you're either all the way or you're not.
Yeah. Is there not one way?
Yeah.
Like, is that like, so, I mean, people who think like, yeah, there's this very dippy, like kind of like new age Christianity that's like, oh no, Christianity is just about love, brother. It's like, yeah, you haven't read the Old or New Testament if that's what you believe. Whoever's teaching you that is sending you straight to hell. Everyone who's in the room, please drop a like. Really appreciate it if you drop a like on our stream. Zemo says, I'm an atheist and think it's total fiction, but I do fear the outright erosion and removal of these principles and stories that connect us. Yeah, do they connect us though? I don't think they do connect us. I think they're just another mode of separation. They connect some people who happen to find some of the stories and teachings worthwhile. But I mean, for everyone else who's not in the club, they're kind of just like encouraged or discouraged, from their own lives to try and join the club. So I don't know how, like, I know Christianity wants to, like, a lot of people, how they talk about Christianity, they see it as this big uniting force, but I just don't see that. Yeah. Canaman, go ahead. If you have something.
Yeah. I just feel like, a lot of, fundamentalists all the way up to even lukewarm Christians tend to see the Bible as the complete truth, whether you take it metaphorically or literally. And if there is such a complete truth, I'd be interested to know why there are so many thousands of versions.
Yeah, like we went through with authorship there, the Bible has been through the authorship meat grinder in its history. And there are so many uneducated people out there that don't know that because their pastor's not going to tell them that. They're not going to tell them like things that are going to like have them raise doubts, like kind of what were happening in my mind when I was 5 years old, just being like, what? Divinely inspired? What are these people talking about? But yeah, when you start going through like the origins of authorship of all of these different books, and then way down the line, you get into the King James version finally, like that everyone thinks has something to do with the original quote unquote true word. Yeah, I mean, and then we also talk about like, then the new age watered down versions. Canaman, I just saw your background. That is hilarious. I love it.
It was very appropriate.
Oh, I think it's perfect. You have seen the light, or you are the light. Yeah. So, you guys, the question is today: do any of you remember being a Bible believer? Where, and do you think most Christians you've met and spoken with about the Bible, they believe that the Bible is true, just generally they believe it's all true. The book is true. It's just you have to figure out, you got to do a natural reading of it and figure out how it's true? Or do you think that the majority of Christians you've spoken to are more like, okay, some of it's true, some of it isn't, or that they might believe some of it and not believe other parts? What do you guys think?
It's been my experience to find almost an even mix of both.
Yeah.
There's people who out there, mainly what I've come across would be like creationists, that the stars were made after the plants,
Right.
and that we have a dome above a flat Earth on pillars sitting on the backs of elephants, and then it becomes turtles all the way down. It's just there's so many fantastical elements that just go against what we can observe to be the case. That I really think that maybe looking at any religious text is a great idea for learning about the way people thought historically.
Yeah.
But in the end, you got to realize that every one of these texts were written by people who didn't know where the sun went at night and didn't understand that when the water rippled, it was because of a physical object, air, moving it. They thought it was the spirit of a god.
Right.
And I think that as a society, as an entire world, with the information that's available to almost everyone, that maybe it's time to move beyond the mythologies and live in a world that's demonstrable.
Yeah. I think we have the resources, the time, the education standards, that people should have very good reason now, if they simply just look, to doubt that the Bible is entirely accurate, even if they're a Christian. They have very good reasons to doubt that the Bible is entirely accurate. People like Dinesh D'Souza are going to argue, like, the Bible, there's a narrative in the Bible, and the Bible is there. It doesn't matter if certain particular details are in contradiction, because he'll say these are like individuals like us talking about an event we witnessed, and of course there's going to be competing versions of these events, and sometimes we only have one version in Scripture, and we're only getting it from one person or a couple people, and they have slightly different versions, and so and then that's why that's the apologetics for why there might appear to be contradictions when it comes to details. But like that just has never been convincing to me. That should be a good reason to say, okay, hold on, if these books are divinely inspired and the people delivering the information are divinely inspired, you would expect the divine inspiration to be to delivering correct information. And some people might say, well, why would you expect that? That's not guaranteed. Okay, fine. Then what's the difference between the information we've got in the Bible, the collection of the books, and information of any other kind of book or any other kind of authorship? It's full of mistakes and contradictions too about history. So what is the difference between this divine inspiration book and this other one? Well, the difference is the claims, the divine, the extraordinary claims, the miracles and things like this being claimed. So, it's not the same as believing any other book, like when there are such claims like that. And I'm of the Sam Harris camp, where, there should be no shame for Christians if they really want to hold on to certain teachings that they learned from Jesus, if they think Jesus is a moral hero, if they forget about the part where Jesus, endorsed the old laws of the prophets. I came not to abolish the laws, but to fulfill them. Forget about that part, but just look at Jesus as a moral hero in the end stages of his life. Edit some things out and look at Jesus as a kind, gentle, understanding, moral hero of some kind. Make up some version like that. Like there should be no shame in that. As far as like your like a moral model based on Christianity. And then you don't have to do all this like epistemological gymnastics that you would never dream of doing with any other thing, to try and feel like you're somehow wise and accepting this stuff to be as true as the apple in your hand that you're eating. So that's kind of where I'm at. Well, welcome, Eric. We are talking about why people believe everything in the Bible, or even some things. We've talked about the history, and also welcome to Sam, man. What do either of you have to say about the Bible and your experience about having conversations about the Bible? Eric or Sam, you can go first if you're available. Maybe they're not around. How about you, Scott? What do you think? No one's here. Leaving me hanging. That's all right.
Leaving you hanging.
We got a lot of people on YouTube. Say hello, everyone. I hope you guys join our Discord server here. Anyone is welcome to join, whether you believe in the existence of God, whether you don't. We have Muslims, Hindus, atheists, Christians, all kinds of people on our Discord server. So, feel free to join us. We're a conversation server. All of our conversations are done based on good faith, helpful principles. Looks like we're getting some comments here. Someone says, my evidence of God's existence comes from the life of Christ, a real historical figure. How do you know that the account of Christ's life is accurate? And especially any of the miracles claims and anything that's like out of the ordinary, right? Extraordinary. You just believe that, Matt Chu, and feel free to join us on Discord and come and chat if you want. But I would assume you just believe that because you read it in the Bible and you took it to be true, right? But if you look at all of the historical evidence that we have of how the Bible came to be and all the authorship behind it, isn't it at least possible that some of what you think was Christ's life is wrong or incorrect? An honest, someone who's honestly trying to find what actually has gone on this planet, that should at least raise doubt to a level of possibility that what you believe about Christ is incorrect in some way. And it might be incorrect in a big way. Maybe there weren't any miracles, right? The miracles were written in there to spruce up the religion so that it transcended and went beyond other religions because of how grand the claims were. And,
Yes, sir.
And Matthew, you say a lot of my beliefs come from Christ comes from the Gospel of Thomas, not the New Testament. That's fine. It's the same issue, right? Is Kanamama new? I think so. Let's see.
That dude been reading my gospel?
Canna Mama is brand new. That's my wife. Everybody say hello to my pretty little pink-haired wife.
Oh, welcome. Welcome, Canna Mama. If you're new to Discord, you just have to unmute if you want to say hi. But we are talking about the Bible today and
The Bible.
asking the question, why do, and people might ask, like, what's with this question? But it's good to come up with some new questions or new framing of questions because it can inspire maybe some nuanced discussions about this topic. So why do you believe everything in the Bible? So, and we were just talking about possibility as well. And it strikes me as very dishonest to what's truly going on internally inside someone when they say that they are truly dogmatic in that they believe the Bible to be incontrovertibly true, in that there's no possible way that anything could be untrue in the Bible because it's divinely inspired and it's from God. I actually think when people claim to believe something to be incontrovertibly true, they're actually being delusional, and I'll tell you why. They should at least know that it's possible that something is untrue based on everything we understand about humanity. And I don't think there's anything contradictory about this in your religion either. But you should be able to look around and see that, it is possible that tomorrow, Satan might win or whatever and convince me that it is possible. Because it's possible for Satan to win you over, right? And for you to lose your faith in God or for any reason lose your faith in God, right? That's possible. So as long as that's possible, it's possible, it should be possible to you that that the Bible could be untrue in some way. I mean, I hope that computes, but Zemo says Donald Trump is my Jesus. Is that
That's Zemo? You remember Zemo, right?
Yeah, is that Zach?
That's Zach.
Get in here, Zach. You know how to get to the Discord. But yeah, anyone who wants to jump on and defend the truthfulness of the Bible, feel free to come in here. I'm happy to slow down and go claim by claim for anyone that's interested. I know we have a lot of Christians in our server, but strangely enough, for this question on the Bible, I'm not seeing anyone show up to defend. But I know it's a lot of work, but it's God's word, right?
Why ain't you taking a natural reading, boy?
Yeah, why aren't you reading that naturally?
Just read it naturally. You'll get it.
Yeah, I have a couple of anecdotes that I'd like to add.
Sure.
I'd probably say that the first time that I questioned the Bible as being factual had to be, excuse me, I have a guest.
Yeah, no worries.
It was when I was first learning about religion, honestly, and I was being taught by grown people. I think I was around 11 years old, something like that. My folks weren't really religious. My grandparents lived far enough away that they didn't come get us and take us to any kind of churches or anything. And so I found one on my own and asked my parents to take me up there, and they'd take me up, drop me off, give me a couple dollars for the collection plate that I didn't understand why I was doing. And the minister asked if anyone had any questions that they'd want to stick around at the end and ask. And I was like, well, yeah, I do. I said, during the Eve and Adam and their children, it says in the Bible they married and had more children. Who did they marry, Mr. Minister, if Eve was the only other woman? And his answer, I guess to avoid the incest problem, was he married some of the women from around the other tribes. Well, excuse me, sir, if there's only two people on the earth, who makes up the other tribes? And he found a way to dismiss himself very quickly after that. And they no longer asked us to ask questions after service anymore.
He wasn't prepared for that one, which is kind of funny. Like, those of you who are Bible believing Christians in the YouTube chat, how would you answer that? Let's see if we can get a coherent answer. Did Adam and Eve marry each other? Is this an incestuous religion that you're following? And if so, do you have a problem with that? Maybe you don't.
Yeah, the whole Cain and Abel thing's a problem, because who did they marry?
Right.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. What up, Zemo? What's shaking, man? Long time no talkie.
Broski.
Yeah.
Brosophiles.
Maybe the best. What would be our best apologetics if we were the Christians having to apologize for this? Scott said they banged their mom. See, I think the best I could do is I could say, no, there were these tribes of non-human, like almost human, but by procreating with Adam and Eve, they became human. Maybe that's my best shot.
Maybe it was okay. Maybe it was incest was okay for a little while, but then it was like, no more.
Yeah, right. We're going to open that whole incest conversation right up. I know it.
Y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. What's shaking?
What's up, guys?
Hey, it's been a while.
Yeah, been a minute.
How's life?
I don't know why I have this Elon Musk picture. I don't really fuck with it. I don't like him. I like Elon, but I'm not like crazy about him like some people. So
Yeah.
I'm not like a crazy Trump guy or nothing leaving that comment.
Well, you at least liked him enough to make him your profile pic.
Yeah, I know. I think I just like the picture.
Cool.
It is a cool picture.
They launched another.
Might have been a troll pic. I don't know.
It is a little bit true. It's a little true.
They launched a new rocket today. I saw.
Yeah, he's always fucking doing some crazy stuff. That what's that Starlink thing he does where it goes to the sky and it's like
Yeah.
It's like a bunch of tiny little things.
It's like little mobile, like local area networks that can hook up to satellite internet and shit.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, that shit looks crazy going across the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
From what I've read is the idea is to give to make sure the entire world has is connected to the internet, because there are still pockets of the world, of course, that are not developed and they don't have the services.
Yeah, like Alabama.
Nowadays.
Like Alabama. No, do you know what's the best thing is in places like Iran, where they police the internet. Like I think Starlink's going to be able to just have the Starlink signal there, so people can have like unedited access to the internet, which I think would be good.
Yeah, or like China, where they just delete whole stories or delete whole apps. You can't get on a certain app, you know?
Oh yeah.
Like
how we live in China.
Well, I guess
I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, North Korea.
What do we think about, and this is not on the topic, but what do we think about Biden letting Ukraine shoot nuclear missile, or not nuclear, but missiles over to Russia border?
Well, we're not gonna go into that right now. We gotta stay on topic. But Ethan, do you have anything to add on the Bible? What's been your experience with the Bible and Christianity?
So I've always been a Christian myself, but to put it this way, is I'm not a good speaker on this, but to put it this way, what I believe Jesus died on the cross. I believe that there's the Trinity and all that, but I am still very new into it, of doing stuff like that. And yes, I don't think all of the stories are all moral, but you have to think about this. If you look back in our life, if it's in the Bible or not in the Bible, humanity hasn't always been normal. I mean, you look in the early days of just America and re-educating Native Americans to that. So I mean, not everything is perfect, and you go look into every religion, and every religion's not perfect. There's not that perfect religion, and if there is, it's because they're hiding something.
Yeah. Well, Ethan,
nothing is perfect.
Yeah, Ethan, you're kind of describing like the evolution of our moral sense over time, and engaging in moral philosophy and things like that. But the difference being, something like Christianity claims to be divinely inspired, that the moral laws are objective and they're coming from a God. So that's the difference between, you would expect that the divine laws being handed down aren't like subject to revision by man if they're being claimed to be the only way and the true word of God and things like that. So there's that point. And then the other thing I would say, like you mentioned that you're kind of like new to your Christian belief. What justification do you have to believing that the Bible is a credible source when it comes to like extraordinary claims like miracles and things like that?
My thing is, it is very hard to not believe that there's all of these people from all different types of the Bible, and it's not one person saying it, it's multiple people. It would be a lot harder for me to say, hey, I'm a Christian because of this one person. But when you have hundreds to thousands of people and you have all these different authors all saying the same thing, and some of them weren't even born at the same time, then it's like something has to be going on. Now, yes, we're all human, so we might be understanding what God's trying to tell us, and that might be wrong. So, because we're all human and none of us are perfect. So what I'm saying is just there's so many people that saw Jesus and said Jesus was alive. There's so many people that have so many different stories about God that to me, it's like, how can you not debate something happened?
Do you believe in the existence of ghosts?
I think there is something eerie about it. Like, I have not had an experience myself of ghosts or anything like that, but I have heard people have. So, I mean, myself, I haven't, so I can't really talk about it.
So you're agnostic. You're agnostic to ghosts. You understand that millions, tens of millions of people in human history have claimed direct experience with ghosts and different things like this. So why are you agnostic to that, but claim to know or believe that these ancient writings that have had many different authors and many different translations, and like I said earlier, the scriptures have gone through the authorship meat grinder over time and been sliced and piecemealed together? Why would you believe in the validity of biblical claims about extraordinary things and not believe in ghosts, where people alive today with YouTube channels, ghost hunters, they have the direct evidence for you? Why wouldn't you believe in that?
So my thing is I have not seen enough to look into it too much, but you have to look at this too. Is it does say in the Bible, and I can't say too much. It does say in the Bible, though, that there are things that the devil will try to do to try to make you look at a different way and look at a different thing and try to steer you away from God. So I cannot really talk about ghosts that much. Now, I have not had an experience. Now, I have heard people that do, but I mean, that's no different than that saying to me or that saying to other people that they don't believe in God. I mean, I cannot say a period because I haven't experienced it. Now, two, you have to look at this, is some of the allegations for these ghosts and all that type of stuff have been found out that they're false, and the YouTuber or the person made it up.
Yeah, I think the same. I think I can demonstrate. That I'll claim this to you. I am convinced enough to claim that I know that the Bible, the books that compile the Bible, were not divinely inspired. It's possible that I am wrong about that, but possibility ought not weigh into our epistemology. Plausibility is what should matter. There is zero plausibility factor, positive plausibility factor, to the claim that the Bible is divinely inspired in any way. 0, 0, 0. All we have is our authors claiming to be divinely inspired, or others claiming that the authors were divinely inspired. Claims in and of themselves should not warrant belief. There should be other things. Now, maybe, and it sounds like you don't have those other justifications sorted out. but maybe one day you might think, oh, I think the Bible prophesied something, so that's evidence that it's, divinely inspired. But then we would have to look at those specific prophecies, because sometimes the prophecies will say like, at some time in the future, this building will crumble, and then the building crumbles because there was a civil war or something like that. And then people point to that selectively and say, oh yeah, that's what the Bible was talking about. So none of this stuff seems convincing to me, and it doesn't seem like you have very good justifications to believe any of it, honestly. But go ahead, Canaman. Yeah.
I'd like to ask Ethan a direct question if he'd be willing.
Yeah.
So let me just ask you, do you believe that dead people can rise from the grave now or at any time in the past?
Can you re-say that question?
To simplify, are zombies real?
No.
Okay, so then how can you have a risen Jesus?
No, like, what I'm saying is I don't think zombies as a thing. I don't think there's any possibility that there will be a zombie apocalypse in some sense. Now, there is something, I don't know if you guys seen, what is it called? What's The Last of Us? I don't know if you guys seen any of that, but there are true things that has happened with animals, not humans. But if it does get warm enough on our planet, that could be a possibility. But I mean, it's one in one, whatever. But I don't believe that somebody can come alive and start eating people. I don't believe that. But with your question, was it like, do you believe that people before Jesus could come? Like, I'm a little confused.
Well, explicitly it says in the Bible that when Jesus rose from the grave after the crucifixion and the weekend in the cave, that every Jewish family member also rose up, greeted their family, had dinner, had lunch, yet we don't have any stories written down or even oral arguments of those other people. But we do have what I consider a tall tale of 500 people that one person says they saw 500 people witness this. In my need for evidence, or for lack of a better way of saying it, it just doesn't cut the mustard.
So for me, I have no clue. I have not heard that 5 Jewish people that were already dead got risen when Jesus got risen. I do believe Jesus was risen from the dead, but I cannot speak on the 500 people that because I have no clue. You're just now saying this, and I have no clue on that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Ethan, you believe that Jesus rose from the dead because it was written in the Bible, right?
Yes.
Okay. And is it true because it's written in the Bible? Is that your justification?
My justification is there was too many people and there was too many things that happened because he rose again. There's too many people that saw him rose from his grave for it to not have happened. That's for me. Not just because it was writing, because there was so many people that said it.
Hey, can I jump in here?
Yeah,
real quick?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, Ethan, what's up?
What's up?
My name's Zach. So, Sam Harris makes this point, and I think there's other examples, but like, there's a dude in like India that has performed so-called miracles in front of people that's alive today, in the 21st century. I don't know, turned water into wine. He has, thousands upon thousands of followers. And so why would we give more credit to something that happened the exact same way, where you have not hundreds, but thousands that literally see him do the miracles, even though they're just magic tricks, I assume, because I don't think miracles are real. Why why does that have less credence than when you put it 2,000 years ago in an old book that testifies to it? You see what I'm saying? That's when it becomes problematic to say, oh, just because a lot of people believed it, there had to be something there. Like, yeah, I think there was probably something there with that Indian guy. Like, he probably, like I said, did some magic tricks or something, convincing people. But that doesn't mean it was real, you know?
Well, Zemo, is the Indian guy promising eternal life or life after death? Maybe that'll.
I don't know nothing about that. I just know I'm just talking about the what he was talking about, that a lot of people saw it, and that's a reason to believe. That's the only connection. But some religious type of stuff. I don't know. I heard Sam Harris talk about it.
Well, and the reason why I mentioned that is because it's strange to me that, like, in the way some people's beliefs are formed, that if there's a promise of an afterlife that comes along with the event, or that somehow can sway them to at least claim to believe, okay, yeah, I think I'm going to believe in this because, and where anyone who studies the philosophy of belief or what belief is from a cognitive science perspective, a belief isn't something you choose. Right. It's how you currently feel about a proposition. So it's, and
it makes it less probable because you're adding more steps. It's like, oh, I turned water into wine. Well, that's probably not likely, but there's a probability. I turn water into wine, and I will give you eternal afterlife if you believe in my grace. That's a multiplier, right? But I was watching this clip of this old man. He was on Iwo Jima, in World War II. And I think, there's many reasons, but I think one of the reasons we create gods, that's my opinion, that gods are human creations, is because Earth is a shitty, unforgiving place at many times. And he basically got on this island, which was a hellhole, fighting the Japanese, and he just made a promise or a vow to God to get him off the island. And he sort of said it in the interview. It was on the Sean Ryan show. He said, what are you supposed to do? I mean, what do you do? Where do you turn from there? I got my people in the army that are trained right along with me getting killed to my left and to my right. I can't turn to them. I got to turn. You know what I mean? It's like a last ditch effort. They literally call it a foxhole prayer, right? Like, please, God, get me out of this fucking horrible situation, and I'll do X, Y, and Z. And, from a psychological perspective, I completely understand that, and I think psychologically, like, there's a benefit to prayer, because I used to do it part of AA, even though I had a lot of trouble believing. And I think it does help. It's sort of like smiling, if you just smile, you convince yourself to be happy. It's like a placebo effect. So there are benefits and stuff, but as far as the hardcore propositions and stuff, it never made sense to me. I was young. The Bible never made sense. I remember I'd see on TV, I'd see it like late night, like 2:00. It'd be these guys hucking this is a water that'll cure your cancer and shit, and send me money. And I saw right through it. And I remember my friend's mom tried to sit me down one time, and she kept going back to faith. And I was like, yeah, but why is this and this, that? And she's like, you just got to have faith. And it was basically like, when I heard her say faith, it was just, in my mind, it was her going, please believe it. You just got to have faith, which just means you just got to believe it. Please believe it, which is really what it means. So, yeah. But anyways, I'm done with that spiel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what makes the religiosity, in my opinion, one of the most dishonest positions you can have, because you have to take it on faith. And
yeah, I agree with the Aaron Ross, the most dishonest form of truth claim or whatever. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. I'm going to ask you guys now to take it on faith that I have a pink elephant in my bedroom that's wearing a tutu and juggling.
Yeah. Well, to be more convincing,
that's awesome.
You could offer something in return if the person agrees to believe it. I will give you $10,000 if you believe it right now. Oh, I believe. Send me that $10,000.
Or if you don't believe, you're going to the worst place for eternity.
Yeah. So
can I just say, Kahneman? Can I just say that it's actually more believable that you have a pink elephant wearing a tutu in your bedroom, because we know elephants exist. We know things can be pink. We know things can juggle, and we know things can wear tutus. No one has ever demonstrated a god ever.
Yeah.
So how am I supposed to believe that over your juggling elephant?
Look, I agree, because at least there's some plausibility factor. This is a perfect demonstration of the plausibility factor. There is plausibility factor in what Kahneman claimed there, because those things actually exist. It's been demonstrated. But there is zero plausibility, only the possibility spectrum that gods exist. And possibility ought not be sufficient for us to believe something just because it's possible, or else we would just believe everything, right? Because I'm not going to be the one to sit here and try to claim anything to be impossible and adopt a seemingly infinite burden of proof. So, like people should be focusing on plausibility and not get duped into believing something simply because that proposition is possible.
Yeah.
We have a room full of people in agreement here, but we could bring up some common arguments for the Bible. Yeah, go ahead, Zemo.
Real quick, I do like Noam. For some reason, I feel bad to like burst nice religious people's bubbles. If they're being a total asshole, if they're making outrageous claims, obviously, I don't mind taking that down. But like, I like Noam Chomsky's thing. He's like, if there's some evangelical Christian telling me and my kids are going to go to hell, yeah, I'll argue with them. But if it's some nuns that are on the way to pray for a cancer patient at the hospital, I'm not going to sit them down and give them a lesson on epistemology. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just me personally.
What I often say is, and this is somewhat in agreement with what Chomsky is saying there, is that what I care about most is the well-being, well-being for myself and those around me, and those around me would include anyone who I interact with. So, if I think that, my actions or the conversation I'm trying to have with someone is almost certainly going to cause a detriment to their well-being, like in the example you just gave, I don't think it's a worthy risk or it's a wise or good risk to take in those moments. There are times for different things. There are times for what might be difficult conversations, and we should be able to come up with many examples of good times to have those conversations, and many examples of times that aren't right by our own standards of good and bad.
Apparently, it's never right for my parents. Never the right time.
Yeah. No, there are very, dogmatic people out there that are just like, they'll have a script because they're kind of told this and taught this. If you're really embodying Christianity as the one true way, the one true faith, your only chance to, survive the recycling of the planet, like the Heaven's Gate guy, Marshall Applewhite used to say, which was actually some kind of like perverted version of Christianity. For anyone that's interested in cults, look into Marshall Applewhite and the Heaven's Gate cult. But
Hale Bob's Comet.
Yeah. The UFO is traveling behind the Hale Bob comet. We need to, I'm not going to say it on YouTube, but we need to commit something, and so that we can join them on the flying saucer.
May the undead rise.
Yes.
Can't
we all need to.
The wrong.
We all need to buy matching Nike suits.
Yeah, Nike suits, track suits. Don, we're asking the question today. Why do you believe everything in the Bible? And the reason why I frame the question this way is because it's like, for many people I've spoken to in my life, it's all or nothing. It's like they can't say, okay, this part of the Bible's true, but this part isn't, or doesn't make sense to me, or whatever. So, we're just kind of generally talking about that phenomena.
I think a lot of people need it all to be true because for some reason they have this idea that in order for something to be from a god, it has to be perfect in a way. And they can just argue that it doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
And they'll be much more convincing. People have these really hard claims that they stick to because of their identity, and they just can't let it go. Even though you can just choose, you can be like, no, I don't believe it to be this way. Especially when it comes to God, I think people they want to think of God as like an actual entity that exists independent of minds through the universe and does magic and creates with their speech or whatever it is, and they can just not believe that God, and I think things will be better off because it's dogmatism.
Right.
So.
And to mention, like, they can, something that they can do, and this is a move I've found. The Christians I find to be the most wise Christians, I guess. What they do is to say, okay, they've studied the history of the Bible and the compilation of all the books coming together and all the authorship and all the editing and everything that's gone into this. And they realize that they can find untruths or things that seem bogus in the Bible and just say that, okay, I'm going to, and I could be wrong about this, but I'm going to place my bet on these parts being the human authors, having a miscommunication with the divine and just putting their own laws in there. Their, whatever's the cultural flavor of the time that they want to enforce in that. And then the stuff that is true, that's the divine. Now, of course, my response to them is like, isn't that just you using your own moral sentiments to build your own like religion out of what's already been written? And they kind of say, well, I see why you see that, but that's where they put their faith, that what they're doing is part of the natural reading that's called upon them. But
I think every couple of decades there's like this reformed figure that reforms religion a little bit and moves it around, and as religions do, they sink their dogma in one area and move it from one place to another.
Right.
I think Jordan Peterson's a great figure today that does that a lot.
Yep.
He's I think, do you remember when he first started going on the Daily Wire and I was like, oh, the Preacher Peterson arc has begun.
Yep.
And I think that's what he's doing a lot. He's doing exactly that.
Well, in his new book, We Who Wrestle with God, I think it's called, or something like that. Or We Who Struggle
I saw him post that.
Yeah, so that's his new book, and he's got this big new tour happening around that, so that'll be interesting. We'll have to do
that. Is it Rabbi Peterson now? We Who Wrestle with God?
Man, he got emotional when he was like, they call me Rabbi, and that's just a damn thing to hear, man.
Man, I see. That's what Israel means. Like a lot of rabbis will talk about that, but that belief is not. I think it's like Islam is generally like submission to God. That's what Islam means in a way. And then I don't know how Christianity is like almost like a relationship with God.
Right.
Jews because of Israel. It usually means wrestling with God. So. Oh, minister over there. Let's go.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, is it true, like, I don't know, with, like, October 7th and all this shit, I know you're Jewish or whatever, and, like, I go on Rumble a lot, and there's, like, a bunch of anti-Semitism on there, and I don't really like that, but they talk about this thing in the Talmud that, like, you can have sex with, like, 3-year-olds, and obviously it, like, in the Quran, they talk.
Yeah. I'm gonna start out with saying anyone who says that they've read the Talmud has not read the Talmud,
because it's like 20,000 pages long or some shit.
I don't know. It's like 12. It's like I don't know, like 15 different books. It's literally just arguments about like the application of Jewish law, and there's many different rabbis arguing with each other. Arguments that go like centuries long. It's
so it might be like one rabbi is like, no, we should be able to fuck the kids, then the next one's like, no.
I think there's some weird story about how like when Jacob and Rachel something and they're like 3 years old. I think that's what might be what they're referring to, but no, there's no advocacy for sex with 3-year-olds like that.
Yeah. So legal age in betrothal customs. Some critics misinterpret discussions about marriage and betrothal ages in historical context. It was common across many cultures to arrange marriages at a young age, but consummation was typically delayed until both parties reach the legal maturity of the time. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole, some people misread what the child bride, like they hear child bride and they think that betrothal means like a sexual relationship or something like that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that. Although, in the case of Aisha in Islam,
that's for sure.
That does mean that, or at least
I'm almost
by the
pretty
age
sure,
of 9. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also pretty sure in like 400 AD in some Jewish village, there was some guy who got married to like an 11 or 12-year-old. Okay, like let's just be real. This is what life was like at that time.
Yeah.
It's fucked up.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people died like in their 40s, you know, so like they had to get it going pretty early, you know.
So a lot of people use the argument like Dan just used, the times were different then. So I've got a question for anyone who wants to chime in. Does that mean that we shouldn't use the moral values society has in general now as a judgment marker for that? Or should we try to understand the mindset of an ancient people that we really don't have a way to communicate with other than their left behind oral stories that were only written down dozens to even hundreds of years later? Really curious how you guys look at that.
Well, personally, I think it's both things. I think that we can absolutely judge them by the standards we have today. We know more, we understand more, we're more mature as a species. We can recognize specific evils that we didn't really have keen eye to understand in the past. And yet we can also recognize their humanity and know that these as individual people weren't inherently worse than us in any type of like biological sense. Yeah. And that's how I think we should judge it.
Yeah. And I think that the great thing about morality in a secular world, there is no divine adherence to an ultimate authority. You can just get better at getting better. And sometimes that may mean completely throwing out a set of moral principles, a set of virtues, starting over. And what needs to happen, of course, if you want to be rational to the good, you need to determine what the good is and start with some fundamental presuppositions. The two I use to form the 6 Pangburn virtues and maxims. The two presuppositions I make is, one, that life is preferential to death. Most people want to live instead of die. And I would say almost all people of sound mind are in that boat. And most people want to be healthy instead of sick. Those two, and then from there, if we can agree on those basic things and those basic principles for our children until they're able to, let's say, come up with their own, that our children, we should assume that they want to live instead of die and be healthy instead of sick. Then from there, we can look at different ways of understanding reality that are going to give us our best chances of being alive instead of dead and being healthy instead of sick. So, and this is where the model of well-being, I think, is formed. The same model of well-being that I use is the same one Sam Harris uses, Richard Dawkins, Matt Dillahunty, a lot of these secular thinkers. And it's simply a term that covers the full spectrum of human health, which would include in it human desire, like everything within the purview of physical, social, and mental health. And the more we have learned, we continue to learn more and more and more about health, psychologically, chemically, all kinds of different things. Neurochemically is a big one. And our moral standards should adjust to what we, the new things we learn about how to achieve higher levels of well-being. And that's why I think well-being is the right, the correct, the good metric to measure good, the universal metric. Like when we talk about like the United Nations, right? We actually are already enforcing rules from the United Nations on the rest of the planet, crimes against humanity, all these different things. And what is the metric for measuring that? It's not Christianity. It's not Islam. It's not, we're using well-being, human health as a metric. So we're already doing it. And I think it's a fantastically beautiful thing that the United Nations is grounded in this uniting well-being principle and not the principles of Christianity or the principles of Islam. I think it's a beautiful thing that we've already overcome that. And honestly, I think it's one of the greatest and will be looked at as one of the most, the best achievement of humanity is when we were forming things like United Nations. We kept the religions out of there, and we understood that really there are a couple things that all human beings in almost all cases want to achieve, and we should ground the goals of our United Nations in those things. And this is why it's so important to support what scientists are doing. And in this case, I mean, some people might just say, oh, you're just talking about medical science. No, physics, medical science, all the science we do has an impact on human well-being. Like entertainment, the technologies we build to entertain us, to inspire us scientifically or artistically, these are all part of that big suitcase term that is well-being. Nobody speaks, I think, more beautifully and eloquently about this than Sam Harris, and it's one of the reasons why Sam Harris is such a large, important figure in the Pangburn universe. You guys see videos from him all the time on our channel. But yeah. Anyways, a little rant on secular morality there.
To answer your question for me, Candyman, it's sort of like living today. Like, I look back on slavery and I think that's obviously a bad thing, pretty close to an objectively moral bad thing as you can get without claiming to have an objective morality. But also, if I lived back then, I probably wouldn't have done shit about it. It's sort of like living today with how we get our cell phones, and there's people in China that live in or work in factories where they have fucking suicide nets around. So, like Dan said, it's sort of like having your cake and eating it too. You want sort of a metric, and I subscribe to the well-being metric that Pangburn laid out, all like Sam Harris or the moral landscape. It's just a presupposition. I don't think you can get further than that besides saying this is what humans like and we're human, so therefore that's my presupposition. I mean, I don't think you can logically ground it further than that, but that's about where I'm at. With like judging humans in the past. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Stephen Hicks and Lawrence Krauss, we just brought together for a conversation in Colorado, and they had a big part of their discussion, probably the most exciting part of their discussion. Well, the topic was the anti-science of God, but the most exciting part of their discussion was probably the moral realism versus moral anti-realism portion, discussing the is-ought gap, the Humean is-ought gap. And, and it did get me thinking, and we're tangenting a bit away from the topic today.
Maybe we explain what the is-ought gap is.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't know.
Yeah. I mean, so when I claim you can't get an ought from an is, what I mean by that is that if we look around at reality of what is going on around us, there's nothing I can measure empirically that's able to tell me whether it's right or wrong to torture my dog. There's nothing I can measure to tell me that. Now, some religious people are going to say, the Bible, you can measure, the measurement's there. I don't believe that that's sound or valid I don't believe that, right? I think that's just human beings creating more moral philosophy and narratives. But so we look around us, okay, then what are we going to do about right and wrong if we don't have any object to empirically measure to give us the objectively right and wrong answer when it comes to particular moral questions? So, well, what do we have to do? We have to think about it. We have to talk about it. We have to interact with our feelings. We got to try to understand how we feel about what we're seeing around us, or the phenomena, our own phenomenology, our own experience with the world. How does it feel when we, see a dog getting tortured? And that might seem like, oh, are you saying that that's how we come up with where our moral sentiments and moral standards come from? It might seem scary, but yes, that is where they come from. When you imagine you as someone who is, or imagine a person who has never heard of Christianity before, they learn Christianity and they decide, wow, this is for me. This is exactly what I've been looking for. I believe all of that stuff they just learned about Christianity went through their own moral calculus and moral sentiments. And in the end, they decided that it was the right path for them, that the good path. This is good. This is right. So we are all have all of these feelings about right and wrong in the world, and we express them and we engage with them. Now, so going back to the is-ought problem, it's like empirically, I can't measure anything to tell me how good or bad it is to torture my dog. But what I can do is just realize that I'm not going to get an empirical answer to this. So I'm going to have to make one up. So how am I going to make it up? Well, I'm going to think about this, and I'm going to think about how I feel about my dog being tortured. To me, it's like the worst feeling I can ever imagine. It's just a feeling that's so overwhelmingly obviously bad that I can point to that dog without any truly objective standard, empirical standard, and say that is definitely wrong and bad to torture my dog. And we all, whether you want to admit it or not, all human beings are their good and bads, right and wrongs are determined by their own internal moral sentiments. Even if you're a Christian, you do the same thing as I do.
That's why in the old Westerns, they have the bad guy do the kick the dog moment,
Oh, yeah. No, you're right.
Like in Gunsmoke, they like caricaturing that, and the dude fucking knocks out a horse.
And that's what sold me on Benji.
Zemo, I love you so much that you bring up Gunsmoke.
Yeah,
but I hope that makes sense. And obviously, if you guys want a more like Hume's description, get on ChatGPT, look at it. I could read it for you guys, but I don't feel like pulling up another window because I've been doing a lot of reading today. So, then there are a lot of moral philosophers out there who are trying to bridge the is-ought gap, or think they have bridged the is-ought gap. Most of the time, what I see is that they're changing the category of why the is-ought gap exists. And I think Stephen Hicks is kind of doing that. Stephen Hicks will say, well, to say that there's a is-ought gap, you can't get an ought from an is to say that moral philosophy that moral philosophy isn't of interest to the natural sciences, which I think is wrong. The natural sciences also are interested in human desires and everything that's going on physiologically with us. So I think just because, if we claim it is of interest to the natural sciences, that does not mean we are necessarily going to ever find an empirical answer to right and wrong in the way that Hume presented that gap. We might find, like, let's say the conceptualization in our mind of like the good we feel when we're thinking about the love for our dog, for example. But that again does not tell us whether or not that feeling is right or wrong in the same way that Hume is talking about. So, yeah.
I agree. Anytime I've ever heard an argument where they try to bridge the Izot gap, there's times when I've been convinced, and the more I think about it, they're just slowly going from this is the is, and they're slowly transferring it to an ought. It's like Jesus smuggling. They like slowly smuggle it across linguistically.
It's really just sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't want to cut you off.
No, that's pretty much all I was going to say.
It's
like a linguistic trick at all.
But we're literally just describing as things as they happen in the world. If you were to observe the world, be like, how do people decide what is right and what is wrong? Oh, it looks like they decide because they're looking at two people are looking at the same thing and they both decide that one time it's right and one time it's wrong. I wonder what it is. What's happening here? It seems to be relative based on their background, where they're from. Oh, that's how they're deciding what is right and wrong. Okay, I see. It's literally just a description of it. So I think a lot of people get their panties all twisted up when you say, yeah, there's a relativity here. I am describing what it is. If you ask me what I personally think is right or wrong, I have strong opinions. But you have to understand that when we're looking at the world scientifically, when you're looking at the world objectively, we're just trying to see how does it operate. But when we go ahead and look at the world how we want it to be, for example, I want a family, I believe that this is the right way to behave in the world, this is how I'm going to teach my children to behave in the world. That's not going to be a matter of, this is my opinion, but it's not a matter of like, I am absolutely right. Everyone around me I know I am completely fallible in a way that's like, I'm not sure. I'm agnostic about what is right or wrong. I'm relative about it. That's not what that means. I'm not agnostic about it. I have beliefs.
Exactly.
I'll argue for them.
Yeah. A lot of people think that if you adopt a belief that there is the Izot gap, it leads to moral nihilism. And you're just like, no, everyone just do what you want. No, not at all. It's not, it's just is not the case. Never has been the case. In fact, Jordan Peterson tried to shove that down Sam Harris's throat, and Sam Harris spit it right back in Jordan Peterson's face. And actually, Douglas Murray was trying to do it too on the same stage, but Sam Harris just spat it right back in their face and say, no, we're not doing this. I can't have it anymore. Moral nihilism isn't. There's no empirical evidence. There's nothing that shows that if you adopt such a belief, or if you believe that, there is no objective morality or something like that out there, that somehow it drives you to this place of moral relativism where it's just like anything goes. So it's like the thing that people are scared of is that, imagine we come across a tribe where they're killing every second child, or they're torturing every second child to death, and that some like progressive idiot is going to come around and be like, that's their culture, leave them alone. Like that's what that's what people are afraid of. And of course, me, as someone who believes in the Izot gap, believes that my morality is ultimately subjective, I would be the first in line to sign up to go to war with that tribe if they were in fact doing that and getting away with it, So
yeah. So while we can look at something objectively and see how it manifests in the world, and people tend to believe their morals differently depending on the context, the culture, the time, and the history, there seems to be a relativity to people's morals belief. I do not believe that these are somehow equal. That doesn't mean to me that somehow, like Travis said, a tribe that wants to torture its children to make sure that the next tsunami doesn't come is one that I'm going to be like, well, that's their belief. I'm just going to let them do them. No, that's not happening.
And one thing to also realize too is, once you accept that this is a subjective space, ultimately, then you really start engaging in the human moral dilemma, in the real human moral quest. If you're sitting there in some delusional space thinking that, no, I have the one objective answer and it's the Bible, and you're not even playing in the right space yet. You're playing in some kind of fantasy, outdated, archaic space that has nothing really to do with what we have discovered cognitively about human desires and human pleasures and the things that turn us on to certain ideas over others. And you're not even playing in the real space anymore. You're trying to keep something alive, that's really on life support. That is my opinion when it comes to like people trying to present, ancient rule-based systems as some kind of moral authority. I just find it very, very silly. And my biggest concern is that people aren't causing measurable detriment to their physical, social, or mental well-being by doing this, especially not their children. Don't make your children do it. Allow your children to get out there and explore the world before anyone gets into their mind and indoctrinates them against being able to get a proper education. That one's big.
Well, you brought up the big education word.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Apparently education is some kind of perverse term nowadays. I don't know why people think this. Yeah. But like,
because they immediately think you're going to educate their kids against their wishes. So if they're Christian, you're going to re-educate them to, hate Christianity, or vice versa.
Oh yeah.
It's like they think of it as brainwashing. That's what they hear it as.
I just hear arrogance. I'm qualified enough to teach my kids everything they need to know. I'm qualified enough to teach them about English language arts. I'm qualified enough to teach them, I'm qualified. I can do this all.
Oh, so
I tried the homeschooling thing with my youngest, and I found out that I'm not qualified.
Well, none of us are qualified to adequately teach our children all topics. Like up to a certain age, sure, some of us can get by, but part of it is also too, like, not having one voice of authority teaching your children. Like the community is there full of there's so much fruit to be born in the minds of your children by allowing them to interact with other children, with other people, other adults. Do not create this relationship with them where, they look at you as the educational authority on everything. It's just child abuse, in my opinion.
It is. It's authoritarianism in the smallest form at the family level. That's where it starts.
Yeah. Well, the majority of abuse happens in the home, people. So take a good, strong look at yourself in the mirror. Brett, you have something to say?
Yeah, just real quick on that topic. One of the points I bring up with a lot of people when we're talking about religion and government, is, if you truly understand the history of the First Amendment, like really, at least in the United States, this is why it's so essential that, people are allowed to be the religion they want at home, but when they say, they get upset if teachers are talking about other religions or stuff in school, we're informing people about the entire world. If you don't want your child hearing about that, I guess I can understand how that's frustrating, but one of the things that has to be said is like in the U.S. society, you having your religion is the same as your neighbor being allowed to have theirs. And when people talk about, wanting everyone to be the same religion, it's like, that's not democratic society. People have the right to, know religion like we're talking about here, or be in a religion. And, that kind of dogma to me is needs to be challenged.
Yeah. Well, dogmatism. Yeah. Dogmatism really needs to be eradicated in general. And the way you do that is adopting fallibilism. Fallibilism, just simply, folks, it's the best thing you can do for your mind. It's the really, in my opinion, when it comes to farming wisdom for yourself. Fallibilism is the beginning, admitting that everything you believe may be incorrect. That's all you have to do. It doesn't, and holy shit, before the crazy people who constantly respond to fallibilism this way think that it leads to some epistemological nihilism where you can't know anything anymore. No. That's not what fallibilism does. It shouldn't do that. You should still have your epistemological standards. Fallibilism is just speaking to the possibility that you might be wrong about anything. That's all. And why is it important? Well, it tells you that, it reminds you, if it's at the forefront of your wisdom building, it reminds you that every conversation you have, the next thing someone might say about a topic, let's say they bring up like, the conflict in Palestine. It reminds you, even if you are an authority on that issue, that they might have a piece of information you don't know. They might have, something to offer, or so it might bring one of your beliefs to a more nuanced position. So it just reminds you in any situation throughout the entire experience of your life, to be open and realize that you are, that you could be wrong, and a kind of an abstraction from that is that you most likely are wrong at some level about everything. So yeah, fallibilism is the key, in my opinion. And by the way, a lot of these religions that demand that you put 100% infallible faith into anything, those are destructive to your mind. Those are anti-wisdom principles and virtues. Yeah.
If I could add something to Brett's thing about schools.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So with schools, every state's a little bit different, but with schools, I do think, in a sense, I am not saying that schools should not offer, because, like, when I did high school, they offer a religion class that you can take, and it's literally every single religion you talk about, every single religion that everybody in the United States believe in and all that. But the one thing I do think that should not be, I don't think that a teacher should be indoctrinating anything into the child. I don't think that's their job or their position. Yes, I think they should talk about different religions, but I don't think they should indoctrinate or talk about their own to the kids to make them feel a different way, in a sense. I think teachers need to be unbiased, in a sense.
Well,
I agree.
There's some mud in here that we have to clean up. So the difference between indoctrination and teaching. We've had many shows on this before. It's an important distinction, but I'm just going to read something quickly here. Bear with me. It's important. Okay. The difference between indoctrination and teaching lies primarily in the method, intent, and the level of critical thinking encouraged during the process. So number one, method. Indoctrination focuses on imparting a specific set of beliefs, values, or ideas as absolute truth, often discouraging questioning or critical examination. The goal is to have the learner accept the information uncritically. Teaching encourages exploration, questioning, and understanding of a topic. Teaching presents information as part of a broader context, allowing the learner to critically evaluate and form their own conclusions. Number two, big one, intent. Indoctrination seeks to instill a particular ideology, belief system, or viewpoint, often with the intention of creating unquestioning adherence. Teaching aims to develop the learner's knowledge, skills, and ability to think independently, fostering intellectual growth and informed decision-making. Number three, engagement with critical thinking. Indoctrination suppresses critical thinking, by discouraging skepticism, debate, or the consideration of alternative perspectives. Teaching promotes critical thinking by encouraging learners to question, analyze, and evaluate information and perspectives. Perspective on truth. Indoctrination often treats its perspective as the sole or unquestionable truth. Teaching recognizes the complexity and nuance of truth, often presenting multiple viewpoints and emphasizing the provisional nature of knowledge. Provisional nature of knowledge meaning provisional, what we currently have access to, based on what we currently know. So examples of indoctrination. A teacher tells a student, this political system is the only correct way to govern, and questioning it is wrong. Teaching. A teacher explains various political systems, their strengths and weaknesses, and invites students to discuss and debate their merits. So by focusing on open inquiry, teaching empowers learners, whereas indoctrination seeks to control their beliefs and perspectives. Any comments on that?
That 100%. That's just, and it's important that, and I don't believe that many people either understand that difference or have been even exposed to it, especially when they're brought up under a specific belief system, and what we're talking about tonight being religion.
Yeah,
that's being taught to people as the ultimate truth. And once you have the ultimate truth, why would you accept anything new as also truth?
Right.
Especially if it contradicts it.
Yep. So it is you can listen for this with teachers, right? Because there are bad teachers out there that are trying to, that will try to indoctrinate children with a certain perspective they have. And it could be something like kind of benign, right? It could be like, like what are some issues that come up? Like the big one is
like arguing about sports. Like, I'm not hearing it.
Yeah.
There's nobody fucking better than Jordan. Anybody who says that shit doesn't know fucking basketball.
Yeah.
Like that type of shit.
So that would be like the lighthearted side of this. That's like a place that people might even socially accept that kind of lighthearted kind of indoctrination. But then we go to the heavy-hearted side. Now there's the whole sex gender distinction, the whole people who are what do they call in drag reading to children. People automatically think that there's some kind of indoctrination happening here, but I would challenge you to make sure, if you are going to claim something as indoctrination, make sure it meets the standards of indoctrination. Don't just see that there's a different culture being taught here and see that that's indoctrination. I'm sorry, that argument is going to fall so flat on me, it's going to mean nothing. Bring some goods to the table. If you're going to come to me and say, Travis, the drag queens are indoctrinating children, and you show me a drag queen reading a story to children, that's not going to cut it, folks. It's not going to cut it. You need to show me the indoctrination. Indoctrination means something. Indoctrination is not teaching.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to argue like inappropriate exposal and not indoctrination, it'd be like a different claim. But like just indoctrination.
Yeah, that's obviously that's a different claim. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Where did you get that like description of?
This is my saved page on ChatGPT for this.
ChatGPT.
Yep. And if anyone wants access to this exact thing, just go to ChatGPT, type in something like the difference between indoctrination and teaching. That's all you need.
Yeah, I took a class like somebody was talking about in the 6th grade, and it was religion. And it was like, this is what Buddhism believes. This is what Islam believes. There's the 5 pillars and all this stuff. It just teaches, it wasn't saying, this is a silly belief and this is a good belief. It was just literally teaching what they believed, Yeah. And so, and you can tell like with the energy, like, I don't know if y'all like the Am I Racist movie, like when they're at the dinner table with those women, the race to dinner.
I don't know the movie, but
the Matt Walsh movie.
It's real bad.
Any of like the DEI, is it bad like indoctrination, or bad like it's a bad movie?
Oh, it's like a bad movie. It's terrible.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh man, I want
it so bad.
Did you like I Am a Woman?
No, that was terrible too. Yeah.
See, I like I Am a Woman, but anyways, they have this scene to dinner. Anybody could watch it on YouTube. It's like one clip that they've let the movie go talk about, but it's basically like they're exploiting like white guilt. It's a black lady and an Indian looking lady, and any protestation you have against you being racist, they just demean you. And you can immediately tell the energy is totally different. The way they speak to you is totally different. Like you were saying, the avenues that you're allowed to explore are totally narrowed down. Yeah. It's like an energy thing you can tell, for me at least.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds interesting. I'd like to see that scene. That guy in general, Matt Walsh, he strikes me as a very bottom feeder, low resolution thinker. So I haven't seen much good come out of his mind, but I'm always open to hearing more from him.
Bottom feeder, low resolution thinker is the craziest insult I heard in a long time.
That's pretty rough.
It's like the Daily Wire movies, right? So what was the one, Lady Ballers?
Lady Ballers,
that kind of shit. Yeah,
there was that kind of shit. What is a Woman? That was that one.
Yeah, I mean, usually what these films are going to do, kind of like a Michael Moore documentary, is they're going to find like. They're going to find things that agree with their thesis, and they're going to put those things in the movie, but they won't count all the misses, right? They're just going to count the hits, won't count the misses. What is that? That's a bad collection of data. Like, if the claim is that there are people out there who like, automatically believe you're racist because you're white, everyone knows that those people exist. Yeah, definitely. Like, there's no question. I've sat at a dinner table before, and I was giving my opinion on some kind of moral philosophy issue, and I was told to shut up because I'm white. Like that, it happens. But usually what these guys do is they make a film like this, and they give these fiery examples, and then they'll be like, see, society's falling apart. And it's like, no, it's
also,
yeah.
If you wanted to relate it to the news, if someone was trying to be critical of the news, and you're like, why does it seem like a lot of news organizations and whatnot, why can they not actually have a real topic about the conversation? Well, who are their donors? Who are they? Who's paying for the commercials and whatnot? What side of the political spectrum do they lean on? They claim they don't lean to one, and yet they won't actually have a real conversation with people on the different ideologies, because the goal isn't about a good solid conversation like Trav, like Lawrence and Stephen tried to do in Colorado. I think they were successful at, but the goal is manipulation of thought. So it's really important for us to recognize within news, within social media, our own echo chambers, how are we ourselves being manipulated at times because we watched one video and now it recommends another, and so now we go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and by the way, Brett and Don did an excellent program for our channel here just a few days back. You can find it on our live video stream about cognitive biases and how the algorithms that you're fed kind of attempt to feast on those. So, and a lot of this is like, having good, virtues that are going to remind you that you're going to be somewhat captured by the things you're seeing and the things that are being confirmed, that are boosting up your confirmation. So just, it's good to actually be part of a conversation community like Pangburn. That's what we're trying to do here, so that you're not just caught in your own sauce all the time. You have people who are going to challenge you and call you out on, where you might be making a mistake, or where you might have misinformation, or where you might be engaging in disinformation. So, and there's nothing about intellectual discourse like what happens here at Pangburn that needs to be bad faith or unhelpful. We police helpfulness and good faith. We promote those things here, but we police by those standards. So there are communities like ours, and I'm sure there are some more out there that you can join where you can get good faith, helpful engagement with your ideas. And I challenge everyone to be the same way when they aren't here at Pangburn, when they go into their homes, when they go out into their communities, maintain this kind of dialectical behavior. And I think you will bear more fruit out of your conversations than if you weren't doing so.
Man, I try that shit in other Discords, and I'm sure there's other good Discords out there, but like I've got kicked out of like 2 or 3 Discord because some dude will tell me to shut the fuck up, and I'll just snap on them, and they'll be like, "Whoa," and kick me off.
Yeah.
But like having a polite conversation with them at first, but they just want to be assholes.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's a prop to your Discord.
Well, thanks, but yeah, and I mean, I think there's a lack of I guess we could call it like dialectical philosophy, conversation philosophy out there where people really, really want to do best. Where they really study to see what is bearing more fruit, which principles are bearing more fruit, which rules. There are a lot of people, a lot of places out there where you can't even talk about certain ideas on their server, like if they happen to be like an idea from the wrong side of the political aisle. Like, how are people supposed to grow in your space if these things are disallowed? And yeah, if there's bullies, running the place, right? A lot of people aren't going to stick around if there's some kind of police force that's trying to cause you harm while you're in that space. So,
it's the internet, man. It's survival of the fittest, I guess. I don't know.
I guess it depends where you go.
This is why having some sort of structure, ideal, virtue that you live by, that you actually believe in, and you recognize that it's not all relative like that, but it is important.
Yeah, 100%. Does anyone else have anything to add? The original, we got a little bit off the original topic here, but the original topic was a question: why do you believe everything in the Bible? Does anyone here believe things?
You cut out a bit there, Trav.
Oh, did I?
You want to repeat that?
Oh, was it on everyone's end, or was it just Scott's end?
The Scott's end.
Oh, it was just Scott's end.
I heard it.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I was just saying that the topic was, why do you believe everything in the Bible? If anyone has anything to add or finish up with, if not, I think we will end the stream and we'll all head down to the tavern. Anyone have any final thoughts?
I can go with a 9 Inch Nails quote.
Yeah.
God is dead and no one cares. also a Nietzsche quote.
What, Scott, so can you give us a recap of what's been going on in the YouTube chat? You said 2 Christians are fighting in there?
Oh, yeah. It's 2 Christians that are fighting in there. Christ brings his sword is talking about, I don't know, said at one point, like in watching people scream in agony, and that's going to be like the reward or something. I don't know. Like,
wow.
It goes a little bit up, and then fucking Chris Kupina is like a Christian as well, and just saying like, hey, you can't be saying that you're giving Christians a bad name. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Okay, I am a witness after all. God can use me. Yeah, you are currently being used as a punching bag. Christ says, God will say, take that fool to his judgment, and I will say, thy will be done. Okay, Christ, just the one thing, if you hear that in your head, if someone in your head says, take that fool to his judgment, don't act on that. Just understand that this is like your imagination or something. But maybe you're talking about in the afterlife or something. I don't know exactly the context of what you're saying.
Well, if you can't not act on that, please go see someone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when I would say, like, the post I made in that, I said, if you're in your afterlife, if you're watching people screaming in agony, you're probably not in the place you think you are.
Yeah,
you're probably in the bad place.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thanks for showing up today. I think we're going to do the Quran tomorrow. So if anyone wants to show up to talk about the Quran,
nice.
We're going to go through we're going to kind of the same process. We'll go through the history of how the Quran was compiled and who authored it, what we know about that. And then we'll look at divine inspiration in the Quran and how that's dealt with. And then hopefully, someday we can compare these two episodes or something. But thank you everyone who joined us. Make sure you join our Discord server. And everyone, we have our GoFundMe now opened up for our 5th annual Day of Giving. Last year we gave out 8,000 meals to Hastings Street in Vancouver here to people who are in need. There's the GoFundMe there. Every little bit helps, even if you can only throw $5 or something towards the GoFundMe. Please do that. We're at like 15 or 20% of our fundraiser goal right now. So I hope to raise 3,000 this year, and then I usually match the total. Hopefully we can give out as much food this year or close to. We just gave out 1,000 Pangburn hoodies and t-shirts, getting everyone ready all our friends on Hastings ready for the winter, at least helping out as much as we can. But yeah, it would be nice to do a really big food drive this year for them for Christmas. So, consider dropping a $5 on us. Be awesome. Thanks everyone, and we'll catch you next time.